This is the Rugby Muscle Podcast, talking all that you need to become the best rugby player you can be. Now here are the Rugby Muscle coaches, TJ and Alex.
We're back with the Rugby Muscle Podcast. I am your host, TJ, and we're joined by the co-host as normal. Alex, say hi.
Yo.
Yes. You boys do not know how much hard work Alex and I have just gone through just to get this podcast out for you guys.
True that. We started half an hour ago, just over half an hour ago.
More than that. Yeah, more than that. I started 40 minutes ago and we finally managed to recording. We are here. And the main reason that I always make sure that we can get through to these calls to Alex, one reason and one reason only. Alex, what's the fact of the week?
You know what? I've forgotten that.
Your what?
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 What? Okay.
Come on.
I'll look at that one. It takes 52 breaths to get used to a smell. So you know, like...
Wow, that's an interesting fact.
What? 52 breaths?
So you know what's up? Yeah?
Yeah.
But you get used to it after a bit, don't you? Like you stop. So the smell doesn't go away.
I sort of... No, because... No, it doesn't matter. How do you mean get used to it? Like tolerate it?
So this doesn't smell anymore.
But it does smell. Like,
all right, do you live near to the sea?
I've had more than 52 breaths. 52 breaths is the time frame.
Yeah, give or take.
So how long's that?
Do you live near the sea?
Yeah.
Can you smell the sea?
No.
But if someone from the city came to the sea, they'd be able to smell it, wouldn't they?
Right, but they'd no more. They'd still not know the smell, or they'd still not be used to the smell within 52 breaths, surely.
That's it, mate.
Fuddled me with this fact. No, because like 2 hours later, they can still smell the sea. They're like, oh, it still stinks. It doesn't stink where I live, by the way, but...
Anyway, that's my fact, man. I'm sticking to it.
Okay, that is by the by. That has got nothing to do with anything. That is the most random fact we've ever had, I think, on the Rugby Muscle Podcast.
We had a few sex facts a while ago.
Oh, we did. We had a few porn facts as well. Go back and listen to them if you haven't listened to them. Anyway, we are going to get into the podcast. I'm going to get the timer up. We're going to get started. Our topic for today, Alex, is Olympic, and I'm doing the air quotes, weightlifting, because I'm already of the opinion that it's not Olympic weightlifting because you're not doing it in the Olympics. So I don't know why it gets called that. But we are talking about the snatch and its varieties, and the clean and its varieties, and the jerk and its varieties. Now, we're going to go through this whole podcast without doing one innuendo.
Innuendo? What?
Okay, we failed, but we're going to go from now on. We're not going to go for an innuendo, right?
Yeah.
Deal?
We'll try.
Right. So, Alex, let's kick it off because you've got notes.
Mate, my notes are like a plus and minus column and some alternatives. So,
okay, so that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, so again, we've got to put this in context, yeah? So there's no point in saying, should we do Olympic lift? And then say, are we Olympic lifting? Or we say, are we doing Olympic lifting to look good? Or we say, we're doing Olympic lifting to make us better rugby players.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this podcast, you're listening to train to become a better rugby player, which in turn will make you look good and all this good stuff. But the main priority is to be a better rugby player.
Yeah, for sure. So in that context, you have to look at what Olympic lifts achieve.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, it will be mostly about trying to increase power or speed strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which translates into a ton of other stuff as well.
Exactly.
So like, if you can move your body weight quick enough to do it as an Olympic lift, then you're pretty well prepared to change direction, to accelerate, to decelerate, all that kind of stuff.
So it's about trying to teach explosive power. So why we choose a clean over a deadlift is because if we're just doing a deadlift, and we're not going to be able to work as much power because it's just going to be using strength really, because we can't project that weight like we would do with a clean. We're not using the sort of speeds that we would do with a clean, is what I'm trying to get to, and the pattern wouldn't work for the explosiveness that we're looking for in a rugby game.
Yeah, I'm going to cover some deadlift variations later on.
Yeah, I know I used a weird example, but...
Yeah, but that's cool, that makes sense. Okay, so it's just a really good way of learning to produce power. There's other benefits, like, so when we talk about the qualities that a rugby player needs, then like the ability to not get hurt is pretty high up there. Essentially, I'd say that's my number one kind of physical attribute for a rugby player, just be robust.
100%.
And if you look at, pardon me?
100%. We've said it before, we'll say it again. If you can't train, if you're injured and you can't train, you can't get better, then what's the point?
Okay, so bearing that in mind, Olympic lifts need very high level of mobility and stability.
Yep.
So you need to be into that receiving position. That's not an innuendo, by the way.
No.
And so you need to have that shoulder mobility to get into the overhead position. You need the stability to hold the weight there, and the same thing in your knees and hips. Okay. Being able to have that prerequisite to Olympic lift is going to put you in a much better place to not get hurt while you're playing.
Yeah. So the mobility and the stability in the bottom position of a clean or a snatch is going to carry over, so that when you're in a ruck or something, or you put yourself in an awkward position in a tackle, your body's going to be much more stable and stronger in different positions than it would do if it wasn't used to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Unless and I see this a lot in certain sports, where they'll catch a snatch in a really disadvantaged position and they'll lean on the shoulder joints and connective tissue to stabilise rather than using the muscles.
Yeah, and for more criticism of CrossFit, you can go back and listen to the last episode of the podcast.
Yeah, well, I thought we were pretty nice last time. There was a lot of plus points there.
Oh, we were real nice, mate.
Yeah, we were good. And it's not all of them, it's just ones that haven't been coached properly, so it's not the athlete's fault, it's the coach's fault. Yeah,
and you can get people that are not doing CrossFit, that they're trying to self-teach themselves the Olympic lifts, and they've got a bad coach or whatever, and
that's actually leads us nicely onto negative points, mate.
Okay.
Which is, it's fucking hard to learn.
Yep.
But like, you're an Olympic lifting coach, right? Mm-hmm. How long does it take you to teach someone to Olympic lift proficient? Yeah, fucking so long.
Like I can teach people, and I have been teaching people for like a year now, and we're nowhere near, like, we're so much better than what we were, but there's still technical fault. I've been doing it myself for nigh on 10 years. Mm-hmm. And, I've still got a lot of technical faults with what I do.
Yeah. So if you want to be technically proficient at Olympic lifting, start when you're like a kid. Start when you're 5 years old. Do it every day. Yeah.
I do teach a kid, actually.
Yeah? He's looking good? He's doing well?
Doing all right. It's this is actually leads us on to another negative point, is that it's, like you said, they're really skillful, but every session you have to be really focused as well. So I suppose it's very similar to just being hard in general, but you can turn up to the gym, not really think about it, and get a decent bench session in, or do, I don't always go back to bench, but you can do a lot of movements well. Olympic lifting, you have to be fully focused, and if you're not, which you're never going to be, if you're training, including your rugby sessions and stuff, up to 8 times a week or whatever, then having the mental ability to switch on to get your Olympic lifting perfect is, not necessarily, I don't want to say a waste, but it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, and it's the same shit over and over again.
Yeah, and that also, so if you're technically deficient in the lifts, you're not or inefficient, that's going to hold you back from your strength gains as well. So you're not going to get quite the same effect. If you're using a simple exercise, so before we discuss the alternatives, if you were to use a simple exercise instead of the Olympic lifts, you can always make progression as long as you're getting more powerful. Whereas with the Olympic lifts, you could be getting more powerful, or you could be progressing, but not getting any more powerful. It's just whether the skill is improving or not.
Technically better. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. So, what else have you got in the pro column?
Not that much. Because that power and mobility are a big deal. Those are two pretty huge pros.
I would say, the power, and that includes the triple extension. So, not a lot of gym movements will get you exploding from the hips, knees, and ankles all at the same time.
Yep.
And that's such a positive. And a negative, I'd also say, is that not so much in rugby do you explode at the ankles, knees, and hips directly up, which you need to do for the Olympic lifts.
So we're saying it's a low percentage carryover.
Yes, because you're not. And again, we'll get onto alternatives later. But in a rugby game, never do you propel yourself directly up unless you're a line-out jumper, really.
Yeah, or you're lifting as well.
Yeah.
Line-out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, in rugby, it's not quite horizontal. We're looking at a diagonal line, especially for sprints and stuff. Whoops. So again, there are probably better movements to use for that.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah. Right. Another positive, Alex?
I literally had this 2 seconds. Oh yeah, you can get a ton of squat volume in.
Yeah, but without being boring, like with a normal squat volume, you're working at percent, because you should be able to squat a lot more than you can Olympic lift. So you'll be working at lower percentages of your squat, and if you're doing that just on a squat, it's kind of boring. Mm-hmm. So it's a good way to challenge yourself, but without smashing yourself in your central nervous system.
Yeah, for sure. But not for the squats anyway.
Yeah. I've got another positive. Yeah, I've got another positive.
It's pretty cool. That's one. It looks pretty fucking cool.
It's cool, and I would also say it's quite a time saver. You can go through a lot of different patterns, and you get a lot of benefits. You got a lot of bang for your buck with the Olympic lifts.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, for sure.
And then the last one I have in the pro column is that it can teach you to drive against force. So the receiving position, right? You've got a bar that's somewhat heavy, and it should be falling down on you, either it's in the snatch or the clean, and your body is learning to try and resist that and then drive back up and control that force driving down on it. And no other real movement in the gym can teach you something like that. Thoughts? Yeah, I've just thrown it on.
You can get a similar effect with a banded squat or a banded deadlift, but not quite in the same way. Not as fast, for sure.
Yeah. So you're learning to take a shock from a bar, which is
it's shock eccentric loading is what we're talking about. So, maybe some kind of jumps as well, but
yeah. Landing's quite a good one, but nothing to the degree like a weightlifting movement would do.
Yeah. I'll tell you a more unique point for Ollie lifting is the reversal strength.
Yeah.
Being able to, that power and speed and change direction. Mm-hmm. It still amazes me how fast some of the yo lifters get under the bar.
Yeah,
that's fucking incredible.
And that's a lot of, again, that's, okay, this will be our last, we keep saying this is going to be our last plus column, but this will be our last in the plus column. I'd say is also, the pull-in strength that you need is, again, something that transfers over to rugby quite well. If you can get good grip and a good pull, you can manipulate an opposing player a lot better than you could do from just doing deadlifts or squats. Mm-hmm. But, as we said, there are definitely alternatives that we can get a similar effect for, but potentially not quite as good. Right, so what else have we got in negative column?
Olympic lifting as a training modality, mate. Insofar as, are you going to just Olympic lift? Mm-hmm. Because the point of that is, if you're just Olympic lifting, are you working your absolute strength?
Probably not.
Exactly. So you will see a overall strength gain, but you're missing out on a physical quality. But when you use Olympic lifting as your main training modality, you are probably including some heavy squats in there somewhere. You maybe possibly including some heavy deadlifts somewhere.
Yeah. Yep.
So, like, guys who are listening to this and go, man, there's a whole ton of plus points with Olympic lifting. Like, remember, don't just clean jerk.
Yeah, it's not
or just jerk, or just clean, or just snatch. Like, you've got to have these. I don't really want to call them secondary movements, supplementary movements, maybe.
Yeah.
In there too.
There's a better word, but it'll come to me later.
So,
right. So let's look at a negative column, mate.
So we've got time, injury, time to learn, injury potential, potentially boring. I think the fact that it doesn't train absolute strength, it misses out.
Yeah.
Parts of the curve, essentially.
Yeah. And also on that, like, again, the skill, because of the high skill, one person, you could have 4 guys lifting the same weight, but they're not going to be working the same amount of power because it all depends on their skill.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that hard to progress thing's quite a big deal as well. The fact that if we look at some of the alternatives, we can have a steady progression series through them. Whereas Olympic lifts, like, I can think of maybe 9 steps in the progression.
Yeah.
And then you got to do it. Those are quite big jumps.
Definitely.
So that's kind of a big deal for me. To be honest, I think we've covered a lot of negatives there. I mean, I don't think there's a ton of negatives. I just think the negatives that are there are quite important.
I would also throw in, if you're looking for like a power endurance, so if you're including workouts in the circuits type stuff, so if you're doing jumps, squats, and doing sort of a circuit modality of training, again, because of the high skill, it makes it much harder to do high rep Olympic lifts, and I'd advise pretty much about never doing them. You'd rather do one of the alternatives that we're about to lay down on you.
Or look at complexes as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all just high skilled. So as we approach our 15 minutes, talk to me, Alex, what else can we do instead then? So you've given me enough negatives. I sort of want to do Olympic lift, but I want to know what else I can do to give a similar benefit. Okay,
this is where we come back to that strength curve. Do you know, we'll have to link up a picture of a force time curve.
Yeah.
I've got a good one to use, but that's by the by. Okay, so what we're doing with Olympic lifts...
Alex, this will be a good chance, though. We're almost at the 15 minutes. We're going to run over, but who cares? Because we are giving you some valuable information. But that force time curve, where can we see it, mate?
Oh, my Instagram. It's on my Instagram.
Mate, you are the worst plugger in the world. Come on, what is your Instagram?
At Collision and Combat.
There we go. Finally, got it. And on your Facebook, Collision and Combat as well.
And on Facebook, which will be up when this comes out, by the way.
Yes, perfect. And I'll also repost it with a repost app, as it says in the column, at tj.strength, Instagram, Twitter, and all that good stuff.
Sweet. So these alternatives. So when we're doing Olympic lifting, we're looking very much at the speed strength portion of the curve.
Yep.
Which is generally kind of lighter weight, moved above 1.1 meters per second.
Yeah, cool. Guys won't need to be too technical with that, but just bear in mind that it's something that is it's somewhere between a weighted movement and a sprinting movement. That's like just speed. We're working basically power, and you'll see it. You'll see it to get really technical again. You'll see it on the picture. Yeah,
I've got my. Have you seen my strength time curve thing? It's fucking awesome. Just saying that. Anyway, so we're looking at that, which means if we can replicate something in that speed strength kind of area, we're still getting a lot of the benefits.
Yeah, the big benefit that we would do an Olympic lift.
Yeah, and we can still get power training, boost training, 3 or 4 times extension. By 3 or 4 times extension, I mean triple extension or quadruple extension, where we're extending the shoulders as well.
Yep.
Which is potentially better, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so on top of that, with some of these alternatives, we're going to go into a kind of ballistic area as well.
Yeah.
Which is more speed, less weight.
Yeah, so we're looking at even more speed.
So more potential to activate muscles together, which is a big deal. And we can kind of play around in the faster ends of that strength speed curve as well.
Yeah.
So my top alternatives for Olympic lifting is in no particular order. So throws. So any kind of throws you're doing. It could be a shot, could be a medicine ball, could be a sandbag.
But weighted throws.
Yeah, weighted throws.
Even one of those heavy rugby balls. Do they still do those? That was like early 2000s. They bought, every rugby club bought about 20 of those weighted balls.
And really fucked up everyone's passing, presumably.
Yeah. Because that's a good point. We probably want to go there and say that if you're doing it like to exactly mimic a pass, you're going to change the mechanics that you would use as a pass.
Yeah.
And therefore not have as good a pass. If you're using it for just rotational power, boom, brilliant. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
That's another benefit of these alternatives, that they don't have to be in that straight up and down kind of plane. They can be in all sorts of different...
Yep, like so kneeling chest ball throws, they're really good. They're one of my favourites.
Yeah, rotational throws. And I said, we'll go through throws. We'll go through the alternatives first. We've got throws, any kind of throws really. Mm-hmm. Jumps, both weighted, unweighted, laterally, is good.
Give me a few weighted jumps, mate.
Weighted and underweighted. I like to alternate them weekly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me a few.
So come in?
Give me a few.
Okay, so I'll talk to Josh, is one of my fighters. He was in today, and he was doing his weighted jumps. So he did a seated broad jump with dumbbells. Yep. So there's no eccentric component in that. So it's all about that explosiveness without a stretch shorty cycle. He did a eccentrically loaded vertical jump. So he had a weight vest on for that. He was doing lateral bounds, weight vest on him today. So those are all weighted jumps. Yeah. In a sense. You want to be careful that you don't load too much weight on it, and you've got to look at landing mechanics first.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you can do too much of when we're looking at jumps, especially
for sure. And go and find a coach to talk you through that shit. Yep. When unweighted jumps, I tend to move from single jumps to multiple jumps. Again, I quite like eccentric lifts and loaded eccentric jumps. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Things like triple jumps are quite nice. Jumps over barriers, box jumps, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, jump hurdles.
Okay, moving on to more of the strength side of things. We're looking at things we do with bar. So we're looking at like compensatory acceleration, which is essentially working with the strengths of the lift. So a lot of times, the lift, you're weak at the bottom, strong at the top. So we load up the top of the movement. What were we talking about here? Using bands and chains to change?
Yeah, basically using bands and chains so that we can keep the weight feeling heavy as the movement gets easier and we accelerate.
Yeah, the point there is we need to stay at a weight where we can still hit that speed we're looking for, that 1.1 meters per second. Yeah. We need to accelerate that weight. Tons. And same thing with dynamic effort stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can just move the lifts at a bit of a faster rate. So you lighten up those lifts. And a lot of people do this. I've seen people do, like, say they do a 100-kilo back squat and they're almost topping out, and then they do an 80-kilo jump squat. You're never going to get the speed required to actually train power if you're not lighting it up by minimum 50%. Minimum.
So well, let's say it another way, because that was kind of confusing. If you're going to do a jump squat, don't use more than half your max weight.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. If I'm saying minimum 50%, that sounds like I'm telling you to put minimum 50% on. No. Yeah. You need to lower it by at least a half, probably more. So anywhere between 20 and 50% will help.
That's going to be including band tension or chain tension as well. If you're going to do jump squats with bands and stuff, you probably don't need to be listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty advanced shit.
Yeah, you'll probably already know what you're doing.
One of my favourite things for the weighted jumps like that is using the trap bar. We set it out
So a trap bar or a hex bar is a very good way. So you can do a deadlift jump.
Yeah, you can produce more power that way than you can with the Olympic lifts. They used a force plate analysis on that.
That's one of the best ways we can do it. And then I'd also throw in, if we're looking at weighted jumps again, if we're looking at rear foot elevated split squats, also known as Bulgarian split squats, and you use them and you jump at the top of the lift. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I tend not to use those actually, but I do like them. The only reason I don't use them is I get scared about people's knees and their landing.
Yeah, you got to make sure you got good landing mechanics on all of these. And actually, when you're looking at plyometrics, we'll do a whole pod on plyometrics another time, but the first thing you have to get in place is landing before worrying about
deceleration before acceleration.
Yep. Because a lot of people get straight into doing their jumps and they haven't got a clue about their landing mechanics. I'd make sure we do a lot of depth just drops just to control that landing before we even bother doing the other stuff.
Yeah,
cool.
For sure. We should talk about eccentric loading at some point, but we'll get that plyometric thing going on.
Alrighty, cliff notes, Alex, or any summarisations around this up?
We'll summarise that actually. So Olympic lifts are good providing you have the time to learn them. If you don't have the time to learn them, make sure you're training the same qualities that Olympic lifts train. So that's power, mobility, triple, quadruple extension in that fast kind of zone.
I'd also add 2 notes just to make sure that if you're doing it, remember why you're doing your Olympic lifting. You're not doing it just to get better at Olympic lifting, to try and improve for rugby. And if you want to just get better at Olympic lifting, that's great too. And you will get the benefits that will carry over to rugby, but you've just got to bear that in mind. I'd also say that if you wanted to learn the skill, you can realise it's a long-term project and just throw in some skill work as part of your warm-up or just on an off day or something just to get you moving. That's a really good way to learn it. But I'd say definitely look into getting a coach or at least some sort of guide to help you learn these lifts because they are very highly skilled. But if done right, they look cool and they can get you a really good benefit in tons of areas that help with life. And that's why the sport of weightlifting is starting to explode, I believe.
Yes, it can be.
From sports training. But there are lots of other ways, so bear that in mind. Hopefully that helped. Again, if you like this podcast, give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Follow me at tj.strength, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Yeah, I'll put some, because I do Olympic lifting training, as I said before. I summarise my training quite a bit on YouTube. Follow us on there. Alex, what else you got, mate?
Collision Combat on Facebook, Instagram. There is actually a YouTube thing, but there's nothing on there, so... And I don't Olympic lift anyway, so there we go.
Yeah, but you do alternatives, so that's cool. All right, guys, see ya.
Ciao.